You ever realize your whole family knows who you are but still treats you like a stranger? I'm Hailey. I'm 34. I work as a custody attorney in New York. It's not glamorous, but it's mine, a life built on structure, not sentiment. I've been in more courtrooms than I can count. I've seen people weaponize love, bury secrets, twist truth into silence. But I never thought my own family would treat me like a witness to my own erasure. My brother Tyler? He was the golden one. The smile that made cameras click. The name teachers already knew on the first day. The son who never had to ask twice. Me? I was a background blur in every photo. An afterthought in my own memories. They forgot to pick me up from school 3 times in 7th grade. Once it rained so hard my shoes bled dye into my socks. I stood under the busted gym awning until a janitor finally called the office. When I got home, soaked and shivering, my mom snapped, "You should have waited inside. What if someone saw you like that?" Not sorry. Not are you okay? Just, don't embarrass the family. And the irony? I still tried. Still played nice. Still smiled through the holidays. Because no one ever taught me how to stop hoping they'd see me. When I got a full ride to law school, my mom didn't hug me. She just said, "Lawyers aren't doctors." But when Tyler got accepted to a state college for business with a C average and a football scholarship, they threw a barbecue, bought a banner, invited the whole neighborhood. That's the kind of house I came from, where success had a gender, a smile, a varsity jacket. But I built my life anyway. Quietly. Precisely. At 29, I married a man who said I was the most stable person he'd ever met. He said it like a compliment. He left 3 years later. Said he needed someone more ambitious. He told me that on the day I got promoted. You ever wonder if some people only love you when they feel bigger than you? I didn't cry. I signed the papers. Went back to work. I still sent birthday texts to my mom. Still showed up to Christmas with wine and politeness. Then 6 months ago she called. Sobbing. Gasps between syllables. "Your father left me," she said. "I don't know what to do." Turns out he was having an affair with someone 20 years younger. Someone who worked at Tyler's firm. Someone he gave the apartment to. The same apartment they once swore was my wedding gift. The one I never received. She said they couldn't afford an attorney. Said I knew all that legal stuff. Said helping her would mean a lot, like being part of the family again. You hear that? Again. As if I ever really was. I don't know what you would have done. But here's what I did. I said yes. Not out of love. Not out of guilt. But because I needed to know what it felt like to be the one holding the pen. I walked into that house like it was a deposition. And for the first time in 34 years, no one interrupted me. But that was just the beginning. Because 2 days later, while organizing financial records, I opened a folder I wasn't supposed to find. And the signature on the transfer? Wasn't just my dad's. It was Tyler's too. You ever find out the person you defended your whole life was part of the lie? The file was still warm from where someone had tried to hide it, slip crooked behind the printer tray. That's when I realized my brother didn't just get everything. He helped take it. I stared at that signature like it was a punch I didn't see coming. Tyler. Right under my father's name. Crisp, clean, confident. Like he'd done it 1,000 times. And maybe he had. The apartment. The one they promised me once. The one they told me was just tied up in paperwork when I asked. Turns out the paperwork was the answer. Just not the one I wanted. I sat there holding the deed. My hands weren't even shaking, not yet. But my breath felt wrong. Like it was trying to escape my throat before the rest of me caught up. You know that feeling? Like your whole life just tilted 5 degrees and suddenly nothing sits right anymore. I didn't tell my mom. I just kept scanning. 2 hours. That's how long I spent in that makeshift office corner. She brought me tea at one point. Set it down without saying anything. The cup had "World's Best Mom" in fading gold letters. I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I opened an old tax file. Tyler's name was on that too. Co-owner. Silent partner. Not for 1 year. For 6. He'd been funneling money from the family business alongside our dad for years with full legal protection. While I was grinding through law school. While I was working 70-hour weeks to pay for my bar prep. While I was showing up to holidays alone and they were toasting his latest deal. He knew. He knew the whole time. So tell me. What do you do when the only person you ever envied turns out to be the one who buried you? The next morning I left early. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't finish the tea. Just took photos of every document, made a copy of the drive, and left. Back home, I started building the case. Not just for my mom, but for myself. Because this wasn't a family dispute anymore. It was a pattern. A system. You probably think I'm being dramatic. Maybe I am. But the thing about being invisible your whole life is it teaches you how to watch. And once you start watching, really watching, things fall into place fast. Like the fake loan agreements Tyler signed under a shell LLC. Or the way my dad transferred vehicle titles right after my mom's name disappeared from the joint account. Or the property taxes paid by someone named G. Benton, a pseudonym according to the leasing office. I know because I called. I kept all of it. Labeled. Dated. Chronologically stacked in a folder titled Redemption. You might be wondering, did I confront him? Not yet. Because you don't confront someone like Tyler until the leverage is airtight. Instead, I watched. He posted a photo that week. Him and his fiancée, well, now wife, standing in front of the apartment. Caption, grateful for family. Couldn't have done it without them. The comments were all fire emojis and heart eyes. My mom commented, so proud of you, honey. I didn't comment. You ever feel like you're watching your own ghost float through someone else's dream? That's how it felt. Like I was the blueprint for a house someone else got to live in. And my mom? Still had no clue. She called me that night, said she felt so close to me again. Said she was proud of how I handled myself. And all I could think was, you really don't see me at all, do you? But I said, thanks, Mom. Because that's what I was trained to do. Then I hung up, opened my laptop, and filed the motion. It was quiet, clean, methodical, but not without cost. Because a week later I got a call. Blocked number. No voicemail. Then another. Then another. Until finally a text came through. Why are you doing this? Please don't ruin this for us. It wasn't from my father. It wasn't even from Tyler. It was from his wife. Would you back down just because someone calls you family with a smile? I read the message twice, then once more her contact photo still showed us laughing at the bridal shower. I hadn't even realized I was crying until I saw the tear on the screen. And then I replied with one word. A word I never thought I'd use on someone I once called sister. Discovery. I sent the subpoena at 8:07 a.m. on a Thursday. I didn't eat breakfast. Didn't brush my hair. Just clicked print, sealed the envelope, and walked it across the street to the process server's office like I was carrying a bomb wrapped in paper. You ever feel your heartbeat in your fingers? That's what it felt like. Like my whole body was suddenly full of consequences. By noon, Tyler would know. And so would she, his picture-perfect wife with her Pinterest nursery and #gratitude captions. I wasn't doing it to punish them. Not really. I was doing it because it was time. Because after years of swallowing silence like it was a vitamin, I finally realized. It's not your job to stay quiet just because everyone else is louder. But I didn't expect what came next. At 9:42 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. Voicemail. Hi, Hailey, it's Jordan. Tyler's wife. I think we need to talk. Please. It's not what you think. I stared at the screen like it might catch fire. Not what I think. Which part? The theft? The betrayal? Or the fact that they turned my wedding gift into their marital asset? But something in her voice stopped me. The way it cracked. The way she said please. So I called her back. She picked up on the first ring. Thank you, she said. I didn't think you would. And then she told me. Everything. The fake LLCs? Her idea. The apartment? Registered in her name after a quiet quitclaim shuffle. My father's new girlfriend? Not just an affair a cover. Because the real transfer wasn't about love. It was about laundering assets. But why? I asked. She paused. Because your brother didn't want your mother to have anything if the marriage ended. Beat. And because he knew you'd be the one helping her. You ever get punched without being touched? That's what it felt like. She said she didn't know the whole story at first, that she thought it was just family estate planning. But then she found my name, buried in an old folder, on a lease agreement and signed. It said, to be gifted to Hailey upon marriage, per verbal agreement, pending finalization. My father's handwriting. Tyler's signature underneath. Dated 2 months before my wedding. So yeah, they knew. They knew exactly what they took. And here's the part one didn't expect. Jordan was pregnant. 6 months. They hadn't announced yet. I didn't know what to do, she said. But if this explodes, our baby loses everything. And you know what I did? Nothing. I just let the silence sit there. Let her feel it. Because you can't build a family on someone else's funeral. A few hours later, my mom called. Tyler's furious, she snapped. He says you're trying to destroy his life. Then quieter. You're better than this, Hailey. That line. You're better than this. You ever notice how people only say that when they're asking you to stay small? I didn't answer her. Just let the silence do the talking. Because sometimes silence isn't weakness. It's war. But inside something cracked. I walked to my filing cabinet, opened the top drawer, and pulled out a photo I hadn't looked at in years. Me and Tyler. Aged 10 and 12. Halloween. I was a pirate. He was a football player. Even then, we were smiling. And I remember thinking back then, maybe this year he'd let me trick or treat with him. He didn't. He walked ahead with his friends. Said I was too slow. Too weird. The photo faded at the edges. And I realized I was grieving someone who never really existed. That night, I filed a motion to freeze the transfer. It went through in less than 48 hours. Asset seizure pending review. And when Tyler showed up at my office door the next day, red-eyed, trembling, holding a copy of the motion like it was a death notice, he didn't yell. He whispered, "You don't understand what you've done." And I said, "No, Tyler, you don't." Then I shut the door. And I finally let myself breathe. You ever win something and feel nothing at all? That night, I found the lease copy Jordan had sent me. I pinned it on my fridge, right above the one photo I still kept of my parents. And just as I turned away, my phone buzzed again. One new voicemail. Unknown number. I pressed play and heard my father's voice for the first time in years. I didn't listen to the voicemail for 2 days. Just let it sit there, unopened, like a raw nerve I wasn't ready to touch. But I played it eventually. Because I had to. He sounded the same. That same smooth baritone that used to read me bedtime stories like contracts. Even back then, everything was transactional. "Hailey, I know you're angry, but this isn't the way. We can fix this. You don't have to burn it all down." Pause. "You're not like your mother." There it was. The real sentence. Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "I messed up." Just, "You're not her." I don't think he meant to admit anything. But it was all I needed. Because you can only be erased by a family so many times before the ghost gets tired. I sat at my desk staring out at the city below. My office used to feel like safety, all those clean lines in paper stacks. Now it felt like a waiting room for grief. Because here's the part no one tells you. Winning hurts too. People assume justice feels like triumph. But sometimes it feels like cutting off your own arm to stop the poison. I still went to work. Still won cases. Even helped a mother regain custody after her ex accused her of kidnapping their own son. She cried in the hallway after the verdict and hugged me so hard my ribs ached. "You're the reason I can breathe again," she whispered. And I nodded. Because that's what I do. I make things make sense. Even when I'm breaking inside. You ever fake a smile so often your real one forgets how to show up? The news about the apartment went public 2 weeks later. A small real estate legal blog picked it up. Manhattan property frozen amid inheritance dispute. Family accusations fly. It didn't name me. But it didn't have to. People talk. Cousins stopped replying to my messages. Aunt Nancy unfollowed me on Instagram. My mom didn't call. Not for a while. Then one afternoon I came home to a package on my doorstep. No return address. Inside was a box of old things. A hand-drawn card I'd made in 3rd grade. A plastic bracelet from summer camp. And a photo of me holding my law school diploma. Tucked into the frame was a post-it. "You're the strong one." We just didn't see it. My mother's handwriting. It should have felt like closure. But it felt like strategy. Like she wanted points for showing up after the game was over. I placed the photo on a shelf. Not because I forgave her. But because I needed to remember who I was before all of them tried to rewrite me. People at work started saying I seemed more confident lately. I wasn't. I was just done performing. You ever spend so long trying to earn a seat at a table that you don't realize you were the damn table all along? One night, I went to Tyler's profile. His bio still said, family, faith, integrity, no mention of the lawsuit, no mention of the subpoena. But his last post was from 3 weeks ago. Caption, stepping back from social for a while. Family first. Right. Jordan hadn't messaged since. I didn't expect her to. She was probably scrambling, trying to protect the baby, the assets, the image. I wasn't her enemy, but I was her consequence. And that's the thing about truth. It doesn't need to shout. It just sits in the corner and waits. That night, I did something I hadn't done in years. I deleted my father's number. Then I deleted every voicemail he'd ever left. Even the ones I used to keep just to hear his voice when I felt invisible. Because I didn't want to feel invisible anymore. You ever mourn someone who's still alive and not even sure they'd notice? I stood at the mirror watching steam curl around the post-it like it was trying to erase it. But it wouldn't fall. Not yet. Then I heard a knock at the door, loud, urgent, familiar. I opened it. And my mother was standing there. She didn't call first. Didn't text. Just showed up at my door like she'd been walking since 1989 and finally decided I was worth arriving for. She looked smaller. I don't mean physically, though she had lost weight. I mean, smaller. Like whatever used to fill up the room when she entered had deflated. No perfume. No clacking heels. Just mom in a cardigan I vaguely remembered from middle school and a face that looked like it had been practicing sadness in the mirror. She said my name like a question. Hailey? Like she wasn't sure I'd still answer to it. I stepped aside. I don't know why. Maybe part of me wanted to believe this was the moment. The apology. The reckoning. The raw truth I'd been starving for since I was 9. Instead, she sat down and pulled out a photo album. "Look," she said. "Do you remember this one? It was Tyler's birthday. 8th grade. He had a new bike." I was in the background, blurry, holding a plate. No candle. No cake. Just present. But not included. She kept flipping. Kept saying things like, "You were always so responsible. You never needed much. You were the strong one." Then came the line. The one she must have rehearsed all morning. "You don't have to do this, Hailey. You're hurting the family. You ever feel a blood vessel pop in your soul?" That's what it felt like. Like I was bleeding in a language only I could hear. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't cry. I just asked, "What family, Mom?" She blinked. "You know what I mean." "No," I said. "I really don't. Because what you're calling family, I called loneliness for 30 years. Her mouth tightened. She started to say something, then stopped. Maybe she finally realized there wasn't a script for this. I looked her dead in the eye. "You remember when I got my scholarship letter?" She nodded slowly. I continued. "I cried in the kitchen. You didn't hug me. You said lawyers weren't doctors." She winced. "I was scared for you. Law is hard." "No," I said. "You were disappointed it wasn't Tyler." Silence. Then she said it. The thing that finally killed whatever illusion was left between us. Tyler needed more support. "You were always fine." There it was. The lifelong sentence. I was fine. Invisible enough to be ignored, competent enough to be used. You ever think I whispered that maybe I wasn't fine? Maybe I just learned to bleed quietly so you'd stop blaming me for not being golden. She looked away. I didn't. Because I wanted her to sit in it. The years, the erasures, the ache I turned into function. She stood up. "I didn't come to fight." I nodded. "You came to manage fallout." She left the album on my coffee table. Didn't take the photos. Didn't say goodbye. Just walked out like she had somewhere more tragic to be. And I just stood there. For once, not chasing. Not fixing. Not folding myself small enough to be liked. I made tea. Not because I was sad, but because I needed something warm to hold that didn't lie to me. Then I did something I hadn't done in over a decade. I pulled out an old journal and wrote down the thing I used to scream into my pillow as a kid. They don't care until they need you. And then I added something new. But I care. About me. Now. You ever stop explaining yourself and realize that silence is stronger than any apology? The album was still open. Tyler's face, page after page, frozen in celebration. Mine a ghost in the corners. I turned the page. And there it was, a school play photo I had forgotten. Me center stage. No one in the audience. Just empty seats. And a note fell out of the binding. Handwritten. New. From my mom. "I didn't show up for you. Not when it mattered. I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I'm asking for your help." The note wasn't dated. Just 3 lines. Slanted cursive. Ink slightly smudged. It was tucked between 2 pages as if she'd hoped I wouldn't find it until I was ready to care again. Spoiler, I wasn't. "I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I'm asking for your help." There it was. The second ask. The sequel to her first plea. Except this time she didn't cry on the phone. She wrote it like a strategy memo. I held it for a full minute before I moved. Then I walked straight to the shredder. Not out of rage. Out of clarity. Because this wasn't grief anymore. It was rot. You ever realize someone's only sorry because their life stopped working without you? The next week I got 3 calls. One from Aunt Nancy. One from a cousin I hadn't heard from since college. And one from a blocked number that left a message that just said, "She's your mother." That's it. That was the whole argument. Not that she changed. Not that she meant it. Just that her title was supposed to outweigh her behavior. I didn't call back. Instead, I filed the next motion. The seizure of funds was approved. The property was placed in probate. The LLC's frozen. And Tyler? He finally called. "Is this revenge?" he asked. "Because if it is, congrats. You won." I didn't say anything. He kept talking. "Do you have any idea what this is doing to Mom?" That one made me laugh. Actually laugh. Out loud. I said, "She's alive, Tyler. With a roof. And running water. She'll be fine." Then I hung up. And muted his number. You ever get accused of cruelty by people who only remember your name when they're cornered? That week Jordan emailed me. No greeting. Just a subject line, "Can we talk?" Inside was one sentence. "I've left Tyler. I thought you should know." No explanation. No apology. Just facts. Like I was her lawyer, not her ex-sister-in-law. I stared at the screen for a while. Then I deleted it. I wasn't angry. Just done. Done with the performance. Done with the rewrites. Done pretending there was a version of this where I didn't walk out alone. One of my coworkers, a paralegal named Marcy, brought me a muffin that afternoon. Just wanted to say, she mumbled. You're seriously the strongest woman I know. I smiled, said thanks. But what I wanted to say was, I'm not strong. I'm just finished. You ever hear praise and feel like it was meant for someone else wearing your skin? My mom tried one last time. She sent flowers to my office. White roses. With a card that said, still proud of you. Still sorry. Still your mom. I gave them to the receptionist. She asked if they were from a boyfriend. I said no. Just someone who used to know me. That night I cleaned my apartment top to bottom. Not because it was messy. Because I needed to control something. I scrubbed grout lines with a toothbrush. Reorganized my spices. Deleted voicemails. Cleared browser tabs. And when I was done, I poured a glass of wine. Sat on my couch. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I didn't think about what anyone else needed from me. Because no one ever asked what it cost to be the strong one. You ever realize that being needed isn't the same as being loved? The apartment was quiet. Not empty, just peaceful. The kind of silence that doesn't demand anything back. Then just as I closed my laptop, a news alert popped up. A new lawsuit had been filed against my father. And the name listed as the plaintiff wasn't mine. It wasn't my name. That's what threw me. The lawsuit filed against my father, it came from Jordan. Tyler's wife. Ex-wife now, I guess. I read the court document twice just to be sure. Petitioner, Jordan M. Reynolds. Grounds. Fraud, coercion, unlawful asset concealment, misrepresentation of marital finances. She didn't even try to soften it. It was surgical. Cold. Brilliant. The same woman who once begged me to stop had taken everything I uncovered and used it to burn him down herself. Part of me wanted to be angry. Another part almost smiled. Because you don't survive people like my father by waiting for them to change. You survive by showing your teeth. And the irony? The documents she filed, they referenced Exhibit C. My files. The ones I left in that frozen case motion. She didn't just leave Tyler. She left the performance. And maybe in her own way, she was telling the truth now too. But I didn't reach out. Not because I hated her. Because I didn't need to be involved anymore. Sometimes healing looks like not picking up the phone. You ever realize the closure you waited for isn't a moment? It's just when you finally stop bleeding? The firm offered me a promotion. Senior partner track. 6 figures. New office. Name on the door. I turned it down. Not because I didn't want it, but because I didn't want them to be my measure anymore. Instead, I started my own practice. Small. Focused. Family law for women who didn't get wedding gifts. Only debt, bruises, or lies. I call it Northlight Legal. Named after a window in my childhood bedroom that faced nothing but sky. The only place I ever felt visible. Last week I painted that photo album shut. The one my mom left behind. Every page sealed with matte black paint. A quiet grave for a history that never really belonged to me. I didn't throw it away. I just put it on a high shelf. Out of reach. Out of mind. Because I didn't need to erase it. I just needed to stop letting it write me. And my mom? She hasn't called in 3 months. The last message she sent just said, we all make mistakes, Hailey. You'll understand one day. Maybe. Maybe not. But here's what I do understand now. Just because someone raised you doesn't mean they ever saw you. Just because they say family doesn't mean they chose you. And sometimes you have to be the villain in their story just to be the hero in your own. You ever stop needing to win? And realize that was the victory all along? I stood on the courthouse steps. No press. No applause. Just a breeze, a folder, and the sun bleeding out behind the skyline. And I thought, maybe this is what freedom feels like. Not loud, not triumphant, just weightless. I used to think being the strong one meant staying silent. Now I know silence only protects the wrong people. I was never just the one in the shadows. I was the lighthouse. And I still am.